so DIRK, DIRK is been one of the most experienced campaigner when it comes to performance development that I know of. He's been there in the game for almost 30, 32, 33 years. He started off from a small city, not a small city, but a city called Flanders, which is somewhere in the northern part of Belgium, as a medical delegate. And we're talking 1988, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, we're talking 1988.
Good memory.
And then he sort of moved up the ladder, multiple positions into sales management, leading up to the national sales manager position sometime later. And then he started off his first performance development stint or role in Switzerland when he started working in Switzerland as performance development manager. And then multiple positions here and there. He ended up as a global head of performance development for Nestle. He was a borderline celebrity there, because if you were in performance development and if you were in Nestle, there is one person that everybody in the world would know of, and that is DIRK ABEEL. People who are out of the industry who do not understand what performance development is, what is pharma and nutrition business is all about, just a quick one for them is that DIRK is the one who trains everyone who is responsible for the medical communication of their companies and their products to the healthcare professionals. He ensures that there is a degree of professionalism when a medical delegate or his manager approaches the healthcare community. That's where DIRK's role come into play. If there is anything, DIRK, that I'm missing out, you can add in.
Thank you, Syed. So for me, of course, it's also a big pleasure to be reconnected with you, because we've been working for many years together, and I have a lot of good souvenirs there, and especially in that part of the world, being it in Pakistan, but also the Middle East and a lot of other countries, as you mentioned. What I just wanted to add is exactly performance development management as a kind of a key pillar of what I would call today Salesforce excellence, which is going beyond the training part, the skills. It's also about systems. Today, more and more data, omni-channel, and I'm sure we will touch base on that when we talk about COVID-19 and what that has meant or brought to us. So yeah, great experience that I had, and I feel very privileged because starting in Belgium, Flanders, the northern part of Belgium, then also I spent 5 years in Africa, which was really very enriching, and then a big career at the headquarters prior to move to my new role as a kind of global medical sales director in Reckitt Benckiser, but also focusing again on Salesforce excellence, performance development, etc.
Yeah, great to have you with me today, DIRK. So can you very quickly tell me what you're up to now? What are you handling at this point in time?
So today, because it's a bit deceiving when you hear a global medical sales director, some people think it has to do with medical affairs. Okay, there is the word sales. So it's what I would say, typically focusing on the whole area of Salesforce. I like the word excellence because effectiveness, okay, it's saying one or another. It's really looking at how can we enable our sales teams, supported by what is happening in the headquarters, like medical marketing, medical affairs, and other functions, in really to bring value to the customer. And the customer for us are healthcare providers, mainly pediatricians. It's also mainly in the area of, like we like to say, the first 1,000 days. But also additionally, we have some OTC products, which are also very relevant. So customer centricity, bringing value to the customers, healthcare providers, and in helping them doing the same to the patients. And that's what, linking back to what you said before, it's contributing to society through the means of a big corporation, which of course has also commercial goals, but even then you can do the right things.
Yeah. So how do you think, I mean, in the current COVID-19 scenario that we are in right now, and you're in Dublin right now as we speak, right?
I'm working from home. My office is in the UK, so I'm a bit everywhere.
Not bad at all. I like Dublin.
Yeah, exactly.
Been there once.
It's a very nice city.
Yes. So look, we know, I mean, you would know the exact numbers because you've been traveling the whole world in the last 15, 20 years, especially training people. You would know how many, and we're basically talking hundreds of thousands of people associated with medical communication, especially to the healthcare professionals. Alone in Pakistan, I was getting the numbers. They're basically estimated to be 150 people associated in medical delegate team with pharma, nutrition, and so forth. So when we talk of globally, we're basically talking about millions of people associated with medical communication. Now, with this new scenario, right now everything is in a flux, and when you say it is in a flux, the organizations currently are trying to understand how they organize their resources better in terms so that they can maintain their competitive advantage, their competitive position. So what I want to understand from you to start with is that how do you think that there will be a new normal over here or no?
Let me first start by saying that, and don't get me wrong or quote me wrong, I'm quite happy with what happened due to COVID, because it has really propelled us into space where we should have been already many, many years. Because as you remember also in our previous lives together, we were always talking about customer centricity, patient centricity, but the reality was that internally in headquarters, we still kept to focus internally, focusing on our brands, driving our brands, etc., rather than focusing on what does a brand means to an HCP and to his patients. The value, bringing the value to life. So I'm very happy that this is now happening, because today a whole shift has happened in the expectation pattern of healthcare providers towards companies. And of course, suddenly it's the big mirror in front of our face, confronting us. Hey guys, what have you been doing in the past? And where are you today in bringing this value to life? Because if one thing has changed today is now HCPs really choose and pick the companies in whom they have trust, from whom they know that they bring value for them and their patients or for their hospitals. So I believe that the companies that don't do this wholeheartedly, they will suffer big time. Yeah. Those that already started making that shift internally, because it's a whole transformation, I think they are there to stay, and they will make a big gap with their competitors who think that tomorrow the normal will be the same again. No, it will not be the same. It will be different, and I think for the good.
Yeah. So what are the 2-3 top things that you believe will become the main component of that new normal when it comes to medical communication?
Yeah, sorry, I'm always too enthusiastic, and that's why I always try to answer already the question. I think more than ever we will be forced in our sales teams, be it remote teams or face-to-face teams, whatever it will be, and I think it will be a hybrid between both realities. We really have to have genuine interest in the challenges healthcare professionals and the healthcare organization in which they are working really understand that, and then bring the best solution forward. I also believe that a big change will be, we've been talking about omni-channel. Omni-channel is there to stay. Yeah. The only question will be now is, how are we going to use that? Are we going to start bombarding HCPs with emails rather than going and bombard them with verbal kind of communications? Or will we have finally learned our lessons and do it where it makes sense? And to see, okay, when do I send a mail? What is the relevance of sending a mail to an HCP? What has been the trigger? The same with webinars and a lot of other kind of interactions which can happen. It will always be based on focus of what an HCP is looking for. So segmentation, customization, content on demand, service on demand, value on demand, that's the new normal for me. So it will not be sufficient anymore that we think we can orchestrate this whole environment and this whole interaction. It will be dictated more and more from the HCPs and their environment, and it will be up to our flexibility, creativity, agility to give that an appropriate answer to, and try to find the balance between what we as an organization want to achieve and what they are standing for. So for me, it sounds simple, but you will see a lot of organizations will struggle with it because the nature of the beast hasn't changed yet in many companies.
Yeah. Okay, cool. But you know, I've been having conversation with my colleagues who are in medical communication, either sales manager or sales lead. The problem that they foresee now is that since the medical reps, medical detailers are basically sitting at home, and this is not changing anytime soon, there is a fair degree of bombardment to healthcare professionals in terms of WhatsApp messages, in terms of requests for webinars, in terms of run-of-the-mill, roundtable meetings, which are virtual roundtable meetings. And they're saying that there is a time already when healthcare professionals, out of the 10 invites sent, they are rejecting 8 of them. You know what I mean? So they don't want, I mean, how do you understand what is the relevance and how do you make sure that the effectiveness of these events are attractive for the healthcare professionals so that they are willing to participate?
Yeah. So what you're saying is very right, huh? That more and more people start closing all these kind of channels because they don't see the value. And for that, for me, not much has changed. If you look in the pre-COVID period, it's the same. If you, as from a sales management, if you say, okay, guys, frequency is more important than the value you bring, the cadence you need to respect. Yeah, that all makes sense. But if the focus is not on the value you bring, then it goes wrong. And what I also believe is one of the reasons that this is happening is it's output focused, which I believe that the medical sales team of tomorrow that will be successful will be an insight gathering tool. First, go to insights. Hey, Dr. Siet, tell me what is happening in that particular scenario. What is it you are struggling with? What is it your patients are looking for? And where could we assist you in that kind of regard? And recording that properly. So data capture and transforming or translating this data into relevant insights. And I would say again, value-based insights, because value drives sales, not the opposite way around. It's like, I always like to say, when in our previous life, you take a tin with certain products in it, and for a general manager, it's the carrier of P&L. Yeah. With an HCP and a patient or parents, it's a carrier of a solution. And that's how we need to see our products. They're carriers of solutions. And that's, again, easier said than done, because that means that the whole organization internally, from medical marketing over the brands, over medical affairs, need to make that whole transition, really focusing on bringing value. How do I bring value to customer? And by doing that, to the patients, because we cannot always talk directly to the patients. Yeah. So that's for me is the big transition which is taking place, will continue, and if not, they will close the door more and more, being it a virtual or a physical door. And I can only say they are right to do so. And those that really take it at heart from the start and doing it right, at first it will be tough to break out to the clutter, but gradually they will get more and more space. And it's the same for you and myself. I like to talk to someone from whom I know he's listening. Yeah. Based on his listening, he's understanding. And based on his understanding, he's suggesting me something which could be helpful for me. And that's how we need to create this whole, or orchestrate this whole omni-channel kind of experience, without going into the extremes, and learn from it. And have the courage also to ask HCPs, hey, I've sent you this. Was this useful? Yes or no? Because if it's just, again, automation, and after you had a visit from me, there is an email triggered automatically, and there is no follow-up. What is the value?
But did you? But at your level, I think, considering the fact that you're at the global level of within the helm of affairs, and you're basically talking to other countries, but have you guys started working on the small nuances? Because now that the medical delegate who used to visit a healthcare professional in the office, what are are there any small nuances that will change? I mean, like, obviously, the obvious is like shaking hands and stuff will definitely not be the thing. But what else? What else do you see? The number of visits will change.
I think the numbers could decrease. In certain aspects, they could increase. And for me, I don't make any differentiation, even physical or remote. What I really think is there to change and to stay as a big change is that it will not be I'm coming in with my sales pitch. It will be first be by genuinely being interested. What is today your situation?
Yeah.
What is it you are facing? And the sales rep of tomorrow should empty his brain and his memory and listen. And only afterwards, and it's nothing new, it's yet at the end of the day, only it becomes a lot more important, or a lot more people see also, okay, hey, this is about being genuinely interested in what I'm looking for and acting on it.
Yeah.
And acting on it can mean I can do it or I cannot do it, but being open about it. And what I also believe is there that will change is, I think there will be a lot of ad hoc kind of alliances will pop up between different companies in bringing a higher value offer by connecting the dots rather than saying I have one product. No, I partner with a company who's adding value for the customer and for the patient.
Yeah. Now,
it will change how we engage.
Yeah, considering that you're also a keynote speaker, and I see you that you travel all over the world and you talk to a lot of industry leaders in multiple countries. Are you in a position right now to talk about what kind of preparations that are being made to address the scenario? What are they talking about right now about the next 5 years?
Yeah, that's a very relevant question. And when I talk to my peers, you hear many different approaches. So which is already saying that it is not clear at all for many companies how to go back to a kind of a new normal. It's a bit still unsettling, and even early days, because if you go to China, China is getting back to a kind of a normal. You see some companies are trying to do the same as before. I think that at the C-suite level, still a lot of decisions need to be made. How do we reconnect our people with our purpose as an organization? Is our purpose still relevant today? That's the first question to answer. And how do we make it again relevant? And then how do we circle the whole organization around that? I see this happening in my actual work. This is happening quite well. It's really repurposing what is it we are there for, and trying to reconnect the dots and to make sure that everyone can connect with our purpose in what we're doing.
Okay.
So that's one approach. The other approach I already told you, but that's a short term. People, they will go back to try to act as it has been before, which I think is a short term strategy. So I don't think the answer will come in one go. It will be a step-by-step process, trial and error, and learning for the best. But I think, again, that quite some organizations will take their patient groups and customer groups more serious and involve them more in their strategy setting to make sure it's more on the mid to long term rather than the short to mid term. I'm also very curious to see how this will be translated and shared with the shareholders community. Because, as you know, all these big corporations have to deliver, and everyone is looking at it, is scrutinizing the results. So also there we need to go to a kind of new normal. That we go to a kind of, which is already happening, this shift, ethical kind of investment and a corporate relationship. How can we do that, being profitable, bringing value to the shareholders, but at the same time also bringing value to the broader community again? So also there you will see things happening. But
do you think this, or you mentioned omni-channel, but but what kind of a degree that you think that omni-channel will take over? Do you think that the jobs for medical delegates will be as relevant in future? And when I say future, we're basically not talking about like a distant future. I'm talking about like near future, the horizon of next 1 to 5 years. Do you think reduction in total jobs for medical delegates?
I would like to take my crystal ball here, which I unfortunately do not have. What I believe is, and I take a bit distance from the number discussion, is that it will stay relevant, obviously.
Okay.
I also believe that the profile will change quite dramatically. So I think we see an uplift in the skill.
Profile meaning what? Profile?
The profile of the sales rep will change.
Okay.
So I see an uplift in their capabilities, in their skills, because I think that we will go to a kind of orchestrator role for the medical sales rep, where he says, okay, I am the guy. Because today, if you look at so many surveys which have been done by many companies, you still see that the face is important. I want to see someone. It's like you and I, we are looking each other in the eyes, that's creating a connection.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it is, I'm sitting in your office, we are talking now to each other. So that stays important. And how that trusted face is navigating me as an HCP through this whole omni-channel kind of maze at a certain moment, that will be critical. So relevance, definitely. Lesser or more will depend on the situation and maturity of the market and the products we are talking about. And also, of course, on the channels. The biggest mistake, and I think that's a bit where you maybe are hinting towards, is that many companies and many senior leaders in a company think that omni-channel and digital will replace people. For me, it's very simple. You can only do that once you understand which channel brings which value across your whole value chain. And only then you will be able to say, okay, here it makes sense to have less people and it makes sense to have more people in that part of the process. That's how it has to be done. So first it will ask incremental investments and then an optimization of the investment. So definitely there will be downscaling in some geographies. In others you will see the opposite, and you will see also specialization in the medical sales roles, which is also a good thing.
Meaning specialization, meaning what?
I see, and some industries already, or companies have already started experimenting with it. The famous service reps who are going there not to talk about products, but to support HCPs who are creating goodwill by doing that. Again, most importantly is how genuinely is that happening. And if you do something properly, automatically it will have a halo effect on your whole offer. And when I say offer, I like to call it branded and unbranded solutions, CME, education to patients. If one thing has popped up too in this crisis is that a lot of patient groups or patients in general are not aware of many educational programs offered by companies. Why is that? Because maybe it has been done too many times for the sake of having it and to use it as a kind of a nice picture in front of HCPs and so on. So also there we will have to connect the dots, because if we believe that our customers or HCPs are the most important in informing and educating the patients, that also means that we have to work through them directly, because they are the most credible ones. Of course, that will require again a focus, because what could happen today also with digitization is that certain leaders will say, oh no, let's invest more in this patient programs, and we will do a lot of marketing around it and trying to shortcut again the role of HCPs. Maybe short term that might work for certain therapies or products that might work, but again, sooner or later it will fire back, because your customers, your HCPs, and sorry that I use the word customer, it's because I want to be relevant across different industries. Let's talk about healthcare providers. They are the heart of the care. So if that is the case, there is no way around it. You can enrich it, but again, transparency and communication and involvement will be critical.
So I want to ask you, and this may be slightly off the scope of COVID-19 and this discussion to start with. I did not mean for this discussion to just only revolve around COVID-19, because it will be a waste of resources like yourself. I would want you to, and this may be the last question that I would ask you, and this is where the tire actually hits the road when it comes to a professional medical reps in the wake of so much, so much clutter and competition, and this clutter and competition is increasing day by day, and it is becoming increasingly difficult to differentiate yourself. Differentiation is where differentiation is the real name of the game. So I want your help here to for everyone who's listening to give them your take on how to differentiate yourself in the midst of all that intensive competition. What is it that we need to do? I mean, same products, especially the generic pharma, same products, different brand names. What is it that you do to differentiate yourself?
I think there are a couple of levels we need to look at. As I mentioned before, it starts for me with the purpose of the organization. Is this purpose lived throughout the organization, embraced by everyone? I see too many companies that have a very nice purpose, but if you look at their practices, you say, "Wow, what is this?"
Yeah.
So if there is a disconnect already, it will not work.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not working, then as an organization, you have to ask yourself, do we have the right purpose? And if not, what should be our purpose? Okay. So that's for me the first level.
Okay.
Then it's about the attitude of senior management from the top to the lowest level in the organization. It's really to enforce that it is about bringing value, and only let people understand that by bringing value close to the purpose, and because your portfolio should be built around the purpose, is that this is not a short-term goal. It's a mid to long-term goal. So also meaning that to do the things right, sometimes you will miss your profitable goals. So be it. That's also the role of senior leadership. As long as you know I'm doing the right thing and I get buy-in and I get recognition, because at the end of the day, it will be the HCPs and others playing in the healthcare environment who will decide. I trust you. I like to say, and maybe you remember that, I used that also in my previous life, I want our people to be recognized as trusted solution providers. Yeah. And that means I trust you. When I have an issue, I come to see you, even though if you do not have the solution. That's how you can differentiate yourself. But again, when you go in, and now I go to the bottom level of the organization, and that's where everyone individually can make a difference as a sales rep. Say, doctor, today I'm not here to talk about my brands or my products. I'm here to talk about your challenges, about your consultation. I want to understand what is happening, what is working great, and what are challenges for you, because based on that, I will see where I can bring you value and make out the most of our time. You don't hear many sales reps doing that, and not many sales reps are asked to do that. It's quite simple though, but still today, when marketing and other people in the headquarters are looking at, hey, Dirk, come on, it's already tough enough. We don't have much time. We have only 1 or 2 minutes in average. If you're going to ask them to talk about that, we lose ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Yeah. That's exactly the issue. Yeah. And my answer is always, okay, guys, if you believe that by doing more of the same, it will get better, no. Be happy that today you have 2 minutes, tomorrow it will be 1 minute, and after tomorrow you will be kicked out. Yeah. And it's right to get kicked out. So this whole circle, it's all connected to each other, from vision and even the mission, or whatever we want to call it, the purpose throughout the organization to the execution in front of the individual HCPs. That will make, for me, the difference. Okay. And of course, you need to have the good products too. Huh? That
goes without saying. One more thing, sorry, I tricked you into one more question. What would you say to, what are the top 2 to 3 things that you will tell the pharma and nutrition companies to prepare for the next 5 years? What is your advice?
When you say to prepare, is it in portfolio, or it can be anything?
It can be anything. I mean, looking at where we are right now in terms of where we are as a community, as far as the technology, with the technology. I mean, one of the area which specifically you mentioned about is omni-channel, and which is basically relevant to all the industries, especially the industries which are retailing. Outside that, I mean, what do you think? What are the top 3 things? If I'm heading up my pharma, which I'm aspiring to go global also, what is it that you want to tell
me? I think it's stepping down from the big ivory tower and really going to sit around the table with peers in the industry, with representatives of the big countries in which we are working, looking at healthcare, and with patient groups, and really doing that in a rigorous way. not me as a representative of company A, B, C, or D, but again, against the bigger purpose. What we want to do is bring in value to society at a price which is acceptable for all the involved parties. So it's creating a kind of, it's not a discussion forum. It's really a kind of, I don't know the right word, it's escaping me, but really bringing people together with, again, a genuine agenda, and to see, okay, who can contribute to that? Company A, B, C, and D. What is the role of the government? What is the role of the payers? What is the role of the patients? And form these ad hoc alliances in increasing the value offer which we are bringing already today. So it will become a bit a nightmare for regulators, because we want to see everything regulated and the legislation. That's why it's so important to have a mid to long-term debate also with the policymakers, that we know, hey guys, this is where we go. And we know the healthcare system is under pressure. We've seen that happening over the last couple of months, keeping it payable, making it accessible for everyone. What is the role of the industry in that? And you hear the call is going louder and louder, so we should answer to that. And not to pay lip service, but really to say, hey, if I do this properly, that will drive business. Same, the second area is for me, investing in, let me say, infrastructure, data, platforms, to connect a lot more data together to gain insights which are going beyond what me as a company is looking for. Working together with all these third parties, universities, etc. So, and I'm not saying that we need to give up on our profitability goals. No, I think both can be perfectly married. It's only the how you do it. Forget about the shortcuts. We will maybe we will see a short decline in profitability for a while, but on the longer term, it will benefit everyone: shareholders, the company owners, the society, etc. And I know it sounds higher level, it's a bit philosophical. At the end, I think that's the only way out of it, because otherwise, if we will start looking back to our own business alone and we go for the short gains, I don't think that society will still longer accept that. I think we are really at a kind of a turning point to come to a new balance between all the stakeholders and shareholders.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you very much, Dirk. Is there anything else that you would want to add before we end this conversation?
No, first of all, Sayed, I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I can only hope that to all the other people you speak and people who would watch this is to try to think about what we just discussed, and also try to find out how each of us can contribute to that. It will give satisfaction to myself, to my company, and so on and so forth. And that's for me, if you have a value chain, an end-to-end value chain, then at the end everyone wins. And dare to share, dare to try, and also dare to share failure. We fail every day, we have victories every day, and both can learn us something.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much, Dirk. It was an absolute pleasure getting in touch with you one more time. And I hope we continue this moving forward.
Thank you very much too, and I wish you also all the best.